the AMS Accelerator. Thank you guys so much for coming. I mean, we've got 94, 95, 95, 97. Just keeps going up, man. Just keeps going up. So I'm really, really excited for the webinar. So there's Prem. Hey, what's going on, Prem? And going ahead and hey, Mark, what's going on, man? So this webinar is going to be interesting because there are people that I work with that, you know, have worked with me, so they know a lot of my systems and processes. So what's going on, Mike? Mike, what's going on? So I really tried to make this a balance between letting people know some of the systems and processes that I teach, but being innovative in the sense that, you know, showing stuff that maybe no one else has seen that I've been doing on the back end. So really want to make sure that we do that. We got 106. Mark Jennings, it's good to see you. Looking forward to it too, man. 108. I'm going to wait a few minutes to let people trickle in. If you don't mind, I just want to make sure you guys can hear me. Go ahead and just type 2 to make sure that, just type 2 in the question box to make sure I'm good. All right. Awesome. We got a bunch of 2s. All right. Audio's good. Perfect. Cool. We'll wait a few more minutes. I think we'll give it like a minute or two, and then we'll hop right in. And I've got some, let's see, and you guys can see my screen. Make sure I'm sharing it. Yep, we should be good to go there. I hope everyone's brain is spreadsheet ready. It's 1:03. I'll give it 2 more minutes. We'll just give 5 minutes into past 1, and then we'll go ahead and jump right in. I'll also do, you know, if you have any questions, go on ahead and ask those questions. I'll answer them at the end. I just want to make sure that we stay focused on the content at hand, and then at the end we can go through questions. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. So Alexandra, I'll make the screen larger once we start. That way you guys can see everything. Man. This is awesome, guys. I mean, we got 125, 126. I'm excited. Super nervous, I'll be honest, because so many people registered and so many people were interested that my original presentation had to be changed because I was like, man, so many people are coming. I was like, I got to make this thing real good. So last night I was adding some last minute things. All right, let's do this. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and make my screen larger. So we're gonna go there, slide, view, present. Cool. All right, so today's presentation is 4 steps to $459,000, $459,397 in Amazon PPC AMS sales in 31 days at a 28% ACOS. And the way that this will be structured is I will go over some results, just, some supporting data showing that, I get the results that I say I get, and then jump into the content itself where we discuss, studies that I've done, observations about the platform that I've seen, and specific tactical work. And so I'm going to be going into some spreadsheets a little bit. And I'll make it bigger as needed, but I figured it'd be really valuable to actually open up a spreadsheet and do some work. I prepped them beforehand and I left them on my desktop, so we're good to go. All right, so this is the AMS data. This is from one of my clients that I work with. That's March data, and that is just a conglomeration of just scalable systems and processes and making decisions like bucketing keywords, things like that. Like a lot of people, like even though it's a screenshot, it's the culmination of, hitting the pavement and launching campaigns and optimizing those bids over time. And that's how we get these type of results. And we got the PPC data here, or no, this is the AMS data as well. This is kind of a unicorn account because March even outperformed November and December. So that's why this data is so unique. I'm going to go over some of the systems and processes we use to scale this. It's so unique because March even outperformed November and December, and we didn't really do anything different. We just, we didn't launch new products. Some people might be like, oh, maybe you did a huge giveaway or decrease the price to increase the volume, inflate the numbers. We didn't do any of that. It was business as usual for us. So here's the AMS data where March just killed it for us. PPC data. These are just the numbers that if you add them together, they equal the amount in the title. All right, so who is this for? Who is this for? This is for Amazon businesses doing between $15,000 per month and $7 million per month. It's for Amazon and agencies managing accounts of that size. It's for anyone not regularly doing keyword or ASIN research. So like ASIN research and launching sponsored brands and product display ad campaigns. Anyone not regularly doing bid management for sponsored brands and product display ads. So this is for you if you don't regularly do keyword research or ASIN research and you're not regularly optimizing bids. Anyone looking to improve headline writing systems for sponsored brands and product display ads, and anyone without scalable automations or systems to test new keywords and ASINs and perform bid management to control ACOS. Got it, cool. So we're gonna cover a few things: processes and systems, keyword research methods, other strategies. Basically everything we use to basically scale this account. So the house rules for today's webinar is you must be dedicated to increasing the Amazon PPC AMS performance of your Amazon business. And a quick hedge, neither my results or my students' results are typical. The person and or people that you are going to hear about are hardworking and do the work. So that's kind of like a quick hedge. So does this sound like you? Do you use Campaign Manager to make sponsored brands and product display ads to manage the bids? Do you not have keyword research, ASIN research, headline writing, or bid strategies that ensure your campaigns get to profitability fast? If so, then you're probably leaving a lot of money on the table. If you don't have systems and processes for those, then you are leaving a lot of money on the table. And I've done about 300 phone calls with Amazon sellers, consultants, and agencies. Each one of those phone calls is about an hour. So it's 300 hours of phone calls that I've done. And I've seen so many people leaving so much money on the table because of the lack of systems and processes. Let me show you why. Now, this is just another supporting data for my performance. A lot of people use screenshots to show results, right? I do it too. A lot of people do it. I do it as well. But what's more important than screenshots are interviews. So Carlos Fabrega increased AMS sales from 6,500 at a 40-50% ACoS to 30K at a 27% ACoS. And if you go to that link, you can watch that interview. So these are interviews with actual humans that have worked with me and gotten these types of results. Aaron Moreno doubled his sponsored brands sales. Another interview, if you want to go to that link and look at it. So I just want to let you guys know that I work with real people and I get real results, and that's what matters to me. And then another interview with Tony Boffa, 10K to 50K per month with my Amazon PPC systems. And then we got his ACoS from 50 to 60 to 25 using our systems. And these guys, you know, before joining our program, you know, these are smart humans, right? These are smart people. They were thinking that they were doing the best that they could. But the advantage that I had was I'd been doing PPC AMS for 3 years. And so I spend my majority of my life in Amazon PPC and AMS. And so I've been able to see things that most people haven't. So let's go through what my students have done to scale. So number one, you must use data-driven segmentation systems to find keywords and ASINs. So a lot of people, what they do is when they're looking for keywords or they're looking for ASINs, you know, they'll open up their search term report and they'll sort by sales or they'll filter by ACoS, and they'll be like, you know, take this list of keywords and test them, which I think is good, but it doesn't scale, right? You need formulas and you need filters, repeatable formulas and filters where you don't have to do input, right? You don't have to manually look at those. You can have people go in and do these systems and processes. And I see a lot of people wasting time and wasting money not doing it. Okay, so what is a data-driven segmentation system? So I want to go over something that's really interesting. Like I'm going to show you a study I ran for top of search placement. So basically now that Amazon, now you can look at different placements, right? So you can look at performance by placements in Amazon. And so since you can do that, you can you can manipulate the percentages increases and decreases to take traffic from a certain placement. So if you want to take top of search placement, you can put like, I want my bid to increase to 300% of my original bid so I can take top of search placement. So I did a study. So what is a data-driven segmentation system? So let's take a look at this study that I put together, and I did. I'm gonna pull it up and let me know if everybody can see everything on my screen. Here we go. I'm gonna open this up. Can everyone see this? I wanna make it bigger. All right. Yep, guys can see it perfect. So I did a study, top of search placement study. So I basically decreased my max bid by 80%. So this study was inspired by a post done by Viral Launch, where they talked about how you can use a specific method to increase click-through rate for your ads. And so I wanted to test it just to see how the overall performance was. So I reviewed the video and I ran the numbers. I was like, okay, so he decreased the bid about 80%. He put the delta for top of search at 800%. And I did a 16-day test. So here are my study parameters. Decrease the max bid by 80%. Increase the top of search placement bid. So I put like 800%, basically saying that like, I'm willing to pay 800% more than my bid to get top of search placement. The length of time was 16 days. So I did a 16-day before and after study. And I made sure each campaign was a different product in a different category. And it was our top performing products. And this is for an account that does about $2 million a month. And I took our top products and I did 4 campaigns. So this is the parameters for the study, right? So let's go over the results. Here's what I found. I want to make sure. Can everybody see this okay? Let's see. Yeah, everybody can see it. All right, cool. So let's look at the status before top of search placement increase and after top of search placement increase. Here are the dates that I used. Here are the dates that I used. And then here's the data after changing the parameters. So we went from like, what, 66,000 impressions to 3,000 impressions. Went from 966 clicks to 303 clicks. So as you can see, when we increased the, when we put it at 800%, basically saying that we're willing to spend 800% more on a click to do top of search, our traffic went down significantly, right? It went down like a lot. Our spend went down by less than half, and our sales went down as well. So, our sales decreased a ton. Our orders decreased. ACoS held steady. Our ACoS held steady. Hold on, D clicks divided by C. No, hold on. D2 divided by 3.2. Let me make sure that that's right. Yep, clicks and impressions, perfect. So, but what was really interesting was overall, the sales went down, everything went down, but they said in the post, the viral launch thing, they said click-through rate's going to go up, and it did. Click-through rate went up like crazy. It went from 1.5% to 9.9%. So it worked, right? Getting click-through rate up worked. Our conversion rate went up as well from 19% to 32%. Our CPC went up as well, which makes sense because top of search tends to be more expensive than other placements. And our AOV, which is average order value, basically the price that people paid for the product, is similar. I wanted to make sure that those variables held constant. So what's the conclusion here? The conclusion is that if you create a campaign and you want to target top of search, you need to anticipate that your traffic's going to go down. Your traffic's going to go down, and your click-through rate's going to go up. And that's what's going to happen. Click-through rate and conversion rate will go up, and your CPCs will most likely be more expensive, which is true generally from what we've seen on the platform. But what can you do with this information? Now you might be thinking, oh man, sales are down. That's not as good. It's not necessarily this is good or bad. It's just that we know this makes sense, right? Because top of search has less traffic than product pages. And so this totally makes sense from a data perspective because top of search has less traffic. There's only one, it's top of search. It's one ad placement versus the other like rest of search and product pages. So the traffic's way lower. So it just kind of tells you like you can take top of search, but you have to understand that if you're going to run this type of method, then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create a campaign for those other placements as well. So you're going to want to target rest of search and product pages. That was the conclusion I got out of it. Like if I were to just run a campaign and target top of search, I don't think it would be effective versus if I ran a campaign using these parameters, I would want to target top of search, product pages, and rest of search because you want to hit all three. You want to hit all placements. And so this is kind of like, this got me thinking about how do we use these new features to manipulate, where we put our ads on the platform. So that's something like, that's what I talk about when I talk about data-driven segmentation, like data-driven systems based on studies that you do, using like controlling as many variables as possible. And so, this was really interesting to me whenever I tested it. And so we ended up reverting the changes back, but it got starting me thinking about, hey, maybe I should run studies where I use the same parameters, maybe create 3 different campaigns. One targets top of search, one targets product pages, one targets rest of search, right? And use those same parameters. And then that way, literally like I take one campaign and now it's targeting 3 ad placements aggressively. And then you can cross-analyze that data. And you're going to see that, they're going to perform differently. But this is kind of like the stuff that you got to think about moving forward with Amazon PPC because it's getting more sophisticated than it used to be. So you've got to start looking at how these features can influence what you do. Where is the cool? All right, so let me pop out of that one. Yeah, we'll save it. Cool. So converting product targeting. Now, this is something that I created based on, back in November, Amazon, basically what they did was they rolled out a bunch of new features, man. It was feature overload. I was luckily I was able to build systems around this, but I didn't have a lot of data, but I wanted to build systems anyways. And so I used my best, based on my experience in Amazon PPC and AMS, I used my best judgment to create a process around how to find products to target. Because Amazon rolled out, you can now target products and categories. And a lot of people weren't using it, or they didn't know how to use it. And so I've decided I want to build a system around it using existing data. So I want to go over what that system looks like so that you can take this system and test it on your account. Now, generally, what we've seen is that product targeting doesn't represent a ton of traffic, but the converting product targeting process that I have tends to perform pretty well for most accounts. It's not a huge volume of traffic, but it's for people who are looking to take up as much real estate on the platform as possible, who want to, absolutely dominate. So let's do it. So I'm going to isolate SKU, isolate targeting type. So the first thing, I'm going to go through the spreadsheet on this one, but let's go through how to data isolation real quick. Let me pull up the spreadsheet here. Cool. Now, I know this is small data. Are you guys able to see this at all? I want to make sure. Yeah, you're able to see it. All right. It might be some small for some people, but we've got here a search term report, right? Most people here know exactly what a search term report is. Yep, a little small. Yeah, I know. Hold on. Let me see if I can just increase the size, maybe a couple pixels. We can do that. How's that look? Cool. Better? All right, yeah, I know it's tricky. I don't know if even a couple more pixels would help. Cool. Just get in. So let me go over. I want to make sure that I get everything right. Isolate by SKU, targeting type. So the first thing we want to do is isolate by SKU. So I usually go to data, filter, and then go to campaign name. And then what we do is contains SKU. That's how we do everything. We always put, for the most part, we put the SKU in the campaign name because it allows us to isolate by products, because as I'm sure a lot of people know, Amazon does not give us the search term by SKU data, right? Like they don't put a column in here that says which SKU converted for that search term, which means that basically, sorry, I was reading some of the, I got to stop reading these. People were asking questions and stuff. Got to stop doing it. But basically, there would be a column that says like the SKU that converted for that search term, but they don't have that. And so we have certain limitations that we have to work around, and that's where we can use naming systems. So we would isolate by the SKU. And then what you want to do is basically like you want to do contains B0. Right? Let me go down here real quick. Keyword targeting. Make sure it's in here. All right, cool. So contains B0. Isolate by performance. So this is something that we do, like, I'm sure you guys do this, but for this specific process, we do greater than or equal to 7-day advertised SKU units. Generally, so like if you have a SKU that doesn't have variations, then this is a good metric to use. But if you have a lot of variations, which, this is a problem that I discovered once I started working with brands that had a lot of variations. Was if you do 7-day advertised SKU units, that's great for standalone listings. But 7-day total units or 7-day total orders is better for brands that have a lot of variations, because people will go to one variation and then they'll click through to another and then they'll buy that one. So if it's standalone products, a lot of standalone listings, this is good to use. But if you got variations, 7-day total orders or 7-day units would be better metrics to use. So for this one, since product targeting, so with keyword targeting, you can get a lot of customer search terms, right? Keyword traffic seems to be the highest on the platform. But with ASIN traffic, like the product targeting, the traffic is a little more sparse, so it's not as prominent. And so what we do is we do greater than or equal to 1. So we use a very what I would call liberal threshold, just because there is not as much quantity out there. Right? So we got greater than or equal to 1. So this is basically going to be every ASIN under the customer search term that has converted for that specific SKU. So now we have a list of ASINs that we can then start testing in a campaign. And I don't know if you guys know this, but you can create campaigns you can create product targeting campaigns using bulk files now. Now in November, when they rolled it out, you weren't able to do that. When they rolled it out, you weren't able to do that. Go down here. So we isolated by performance thresholds. We reformat to deduplicate. So B0, hold on. Yep. All right, cool. So here's what's really tricky. I want to show you guys something. Let me show you this. This is where it gets tricky. Check this out. You see how these are formatted differently right here? So this is ASIN equals with parentheses, and this is just the B0 with the small letters. Here's a problem. We want to deduplicate data, right? If we're already bidding on an ASIN, we don't want to bid on it again. Like if we're already bidding on an ASIN, you could take this list of search terms, right? You could greater than or equal to 1 advertised SKU unit. You can take this list and use it, but it's not as valuable as if you deduplicate it. Because if you're bidding on the keyword, the ASIN again, you're not getting additional real estate on the platform. That's why we use deduplication processes like crazy. Is your screen frozen? I don't think so. My internet connection should be pretty good. Is everyone else seeing that it's frozen, the screen, or is everybody good? Nope. Okay, cool. Good. It's good now. I don't think it was frozen. Cool. So we've got this, right? So we've got to reformat these. So I'm going to take this data. I'm going to copy it. I'm just going to bring it over. Actually, yeah, I'm going to show you how to do this. Actually, we want to select all. Bring it over. All right. And then what we want to do is we want to reformat some data. So we want to reformat these guys. Remember these guys right here? We want to reformat them so then we can deduplicate them. So what do you want to do? You want to go to Edit, Find, Replace. And then you want to do, actually, hold on, let me find this real quick. ASIN equals, cool. Find and replace ASIN equals parentheses, and then you want to replace all with nothing. Boom. And what you could do if you wanted, you could just isolate this data, like highlight it, go like that, just highlight all of it, and then so basically highlight G, and look what happened. I'll show you, look. See how it's gone now? So we just reformatted those. We reformatted those. Now this is a pain in the butt, man. This is like a pain. Like with search terms, it's easy, right? Because with search terms, the formatting is the same. But with this, it's a pain in the butt. We got to reformat it. So I'm going to go to Insert again and actually Edit, do Find, and then Replace. And then we're going to just go like that, just the parentheses to get rid of that previous one. Go to Replace All. And then let me show you some magic right here. little bit of magic, scalable magic. Boom, look, now we got rid of all that stuff. Now what we can do is we can take this list and then deduplicate, which is what we want to do now. Now, some people are like, man, this is a lot of energy and time to do this, but the different, like when you're a small Amazon business and you're just trying to figure out your performance on your new product or something like that, that's different than when you've got a huge, large portfolio of SKUs and you're a larger business and you're launching SKUs. You gotta like spend time segmenting information and formatting it so that you get results. So it takes patience. It really does, but it's worth the results that you get in the end. And it's going to differentiate you. So we're going to insert a column here and we're going to call this dedupe. Now, a lot of people know I am a stickler for deduplication. So, all right, we reformatted, right? All right, cool. So let me go to view. I want to show you guys this real quick. Check it out. So we have a deduplication formula here. Deduplication formula. And this formula basically, it takes information and it deduplicates it, right? So I'm going to show you how we use this formula to make sure we're not bidding on the same stuff. Copy this formula here. And then I'm going to paste it right here under J, right? Paste it. And then basically what it's going to do is, all right, let me go over what this says. All right, hold on. I want to spread this out real quick because some people might not know, because people might want to know the logic behind it. Look what it does. So basically you don't really need to know all the stuff in it, but like basically what it's doing is it's saying, it's like a statement, like if a cell in I2 matches anything in column G, which is our keywords, right? These are the things that we're currently bidding on. Then if it matches it, then it's a duplicate. If it doesn't match it, it's unique. And then we can bid on it. So let's do it. And then you can just double click in the bottom here and you're good to go. And then what I like to do is go to data, or actually not what I like to do, what needs to be done is go here and then you select, it'll say unique or duplicate. So I just kind of like got rid of some data and stuff like that, but unique or duplicate, you'll select unique and unselect duplicate. It would say it right here. And then guess what? You've got unique ASINs. You've got unique ASINs that have one or more 7-day advertised SKU unit that you can then test in your campaigns. And we wouldn't have been able to do this unless we reformatted this right here. So yeah, I highly recommend doing that process and system. And I highly recommend it for your account. So either you do it yourself or you have your team do it, but I recommend doing it on an ongoing basis because it's Amazon data. It's the best data. So yeah, that is a data-driven segmentation system right there, guys. And then there's that deduplicate formula right there. Oh, cool. All right. I have a question for you guys. How many of you guys know how to find your complete list of negative keywords using Amazon Seller Central? Say yes or no. Okay, Mark does. Mark, you, no. Okay, cool. Yeah, the reason I put this in here is because yes, some people know how to do it. Cool. Yeah, we got a few people that know how to do it. I'm going to go over it anyways because you have a lot of people that say no. Do we have any more? Yes or no, guys, for this one? Oh, we have a few yeses. I would say we got more no's than yeses, so I'll go over it. Just because I started working with this guy named Toby, and he's a 7-figure Amazon seller. He's a really nice guy, great guy. And basically what happened was he started using a software. And what happened was the software, it uses like numbers to make decisions. And I guess it used some numbers that caused some problems. So basically what happened was when he hooked up to this software, it added like, I think it was either 200 or 300 negative keywords to his account, 200 or 300 negative keywords. And guess what happened? Sales tanked, performance tanked overall. Like I think ACOS even went, like everything just performed badly. So I basically taught him how to find these negative keywords so that he can get rid of them, because they were like getting him, not getting him any results. So let me see here. So go down here. So here's what you want to do right here. This is what you want to do if you want to download your, list of negative keywords in your account, which I know some people know how to do it, but I got way more no's than yeses. So I want to go through this, but you'll want to, plug in the date range. It really doesn't matter, but you'll want to unselect where it says campaign items with 0 impressions. Unselect that and then click create spreadsheet for download. And then that's going to give you the data that you need to find your list of negative keywords. This is good for anyone who uses negative keywords. That way you can have like an ongoing master list of the negative keywords you're using. And it's really cool because let's say on a weekly basis or every 2 weeks, you're adding negative keywords. Well, if 1 week, like you see performance tank, then guess what? You know how to revert the changes because you've got the data. And so you'll want to go to the bulk. So while you're in Campaign Manager, you want to click on the bulk tab and it's going to be there. All right, let me pull this up for us. Actually, hold on, let me see. Campaigns, top of search. I'm gonna have to pause my screen real quick to find this. Give me 1 sec, guys. Sorry about that, because I want to find this real quick. Oh, there it is. Never mind. There it is. Search term. Dang. Hold on. Let's see here. Match type. Match type. Nah, man, hold on. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to find this bulk sheet that I had yesterday. Can't believe I can't find it. I apologize for this. All right, guys. I can't find it, man. I don't know how. It was literally on my desktop yesterday. Let me see if it's in here. All right, I'm going to use a different thing. Hold on. All right, guys. Dude, I apologize. I can't find this one. Let me unshare it real quick, or let me share my screen because I do have some data here. I'm just going to kind of show you how to do it. I can't find that other bulk file. Totally dropped the ball there. Basically, what you would do is, let me make this bigger so that everybody can see it. Increase pixel size. And basically what you would do is you'd have the bulk file here, go to data, filter, and then under the match type, it'll say negative. So you would unselect everything. And in here, it'll say negative exact and negative phrase. And then you can select those like you would select them. And then what you would do is you would just go over to status. So we've got a couple identifiers here. We got ad group status, campaign status. We'd go to status and then we would change that to paused, just because in case, now this is what Toby had to do because he was losing so much money. I basically said, go in, and because he was able to clearly correlate the addition of negative keywords to the loss in money. So I had him go in and go ahead and just pause all those negative keywords so we can revert those changes that the software did, just to make sure we can get back to where we need to be. Cool. All right. Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it, man. Cool. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Let me go to view. Actually, let me go to present. We'll be good. All right. This one's huge. You have to have structure and tracking methods to scale intelligently. Now, one thing I learned, like I said before, 300 phone calls, man. I mean, it is ridiculous. Amazon businesses doing between, I've been on the phone with people who are just getting ready to launch up to people doing $7 million a month. And I've talked to consultants and agencies, and I'm telling you, man, I can't say it enough, but structure and tracking methods are huge. And I feel like we get a little emotional sometimes with our advertising, and it causes us to manipulate too many variables. So then we don't really learn the platform, or we feel overwhelmed. So we feel like we can't learn the platform. It's kind of like when you're let's say, for a couple of days you don't have good sales, and then you go in and make a bunch of changes in Campaign Manager, right? You change a bunch of keywords, and then you don't remember what happened, right? Those 2 days, you're like, what changes did I made? So structure and tracking methods are huge for scaling intelligently. I mean, this is a huge thing. I'm working with this guy, Dave, and the number one thing he said that he was missing is structure and tracking methods. Well, he mainly said structure, but I use both. So what does that mean? So here's a question. Do you use Campaign Manager to manage the bids, to change the bids and launch campaigns? Some people might not do that, and some people might. I know there are some people on here that are killing it with the bulk file, but if you are using Campaign Manager, then that's a problem, because it doesn't allow you to track changes. I've been tempted to use Campaign Manager now, even though I do a lot of bulk files and software. But you have to resist the urge, and you always want to use either a software that tracks changes, that can revert changes, or using bulk files where you can do that. Cool. Nope. Okay, here's a huge thing. How many of you guys, okay, let's say you use bulk files, right? How many of you guys who are using bulk files, when you go in, you isolate by keywords, like you say 8 clicks, no sales, and you change the bid. How many of you are keeping the before and after changes? Are you guys doing that? Because if not, then that's a problem, right? Here's why. Because it's okay to use bulk files, but you want to preserve the before and after, because there are a lot of times when you make changes and something goes bad, and you can correlate the changes. So when you download the bulk file and you filter, here's a good example. You download the bulk file, you filter by keyword, you do 8 greater than or equal to 8 clicks, you do no sales, and you take that data and you copy it onto a tab, and that's called before changes. And then what you do is you copy that data again, put it on another tab, call it after changes, and then that's where you make the changes. And then what you do is you upload the changes that you made, and then you observe the effects of those changes. And if something bad happens, guess what you can do? If something, like let's say you make a change and something bad happens, guess what you can do? You can literally go in and take this before changes, copy it and paste it into a new spreadsheet and upload it. And then it'll revert the changes and it'll go back to where it is. I know I talked about Toby before, but we're doing this again with Toby. I do have software, and my software reverts changes. And so, and we knew we had to be able to revert changes when we made them, because what if something bad happens? And so we had a call yesterday, and he was like, hey man, something happened on this day that I used your software. I said, well, then let's just revert the changes back. So this is huge, man. It's huge, huge, powerful. Oh, I love it. And so make sure that you're doing before and after with the bulk files. So, and that's huge, man, because I don't know how many times that people have made changes. Here's another really, really cool thing that happened. Well, I think I'm going to go over it later in the thing. So let's say we want to cut bleeding keywords, right? Let's go over an example here, and you're using Campaign Manager. Will you remember every single change you make? That's the question, right? Like when you're making changes in Campaign Manager and you're using it, you can't track those changes. It's like impossible. And so even the most even bigger sellers, even larger sellers, they'll still use Campaign Manager. And sometimes they'll just be like, oh, I just wanted to go in for 10 minutes and make a few changes. You don't want to do that because you can't track it. That's why you always want to make those changes on the bulk file. Most likely not. What if sales tank after making those changes? I know it went over. You're going to have to go in and figure out which keywords you changed. So that could take hours. Yeah, definitely. So with bulk file, it'll take minutes. So yeah, it's true. Like if you were to change like 50 keywords, right, in your Campaign Manager, and then you found out that after you made those changes, sales tanked, and you could correlate those differences, then when you go back in, you're going to be sitting there for hours trying to figure out how to do that. But if the bulk file, then you literally put it in a file and you can just upload it, and it happens in minutes. This saves people tons of money and time. Also, do you have an optimization checklist? That's another question for you guys. Do you have a checklist? I know some people do, some people don't, but a lot of the people that we work with don't have optimization checklists, or their optimization checklists are not super structured. And so they don't have hey, this needs to be done on Monday. This needs to be done on Friday. Here are the exact parameters that we use for this. Because you want to do it in a controlled way, because you want to have a controlled study. You always want to have everything under control, and you want to have as many variables as possible holding stable. Because when you constantly change variables on the Amazon advertising, if one day you make this change, then the next day you make that change, it's extremely difficult to really understand the behavior of the platform. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to like analyze the machine. And to do that, you have to understand that you need to know every parameter that you put into it, and it needs to be constant. So always keep that in mind when you're doing this stuff. Yep. If not, how do you know when tasks need to be done? Where is your reference point to measure behavior? Cool. So you got to understand the differences between PPC and AMS that get results. So the two ad types are different. And I'm going to go over one of the differences that's gotten me really, really good results. And it was really surprising. It kind of like blew me away that we got these really, really good results with just one change that we discovered that some people might be doing. It's very simple, but yeah, let's go over it real quick. So how do you determine the differences between PPC and AMS that will get results? You have to use large data sets. So basically you want to use a large enough data set that when you make changes, you can see the results across multiple accounts and see multiple data points. That way you can make those, that way you can say with, okay, certainty, hey, if I apply this change, then it will get results because I've seen it get results on a consistent basis for this and that. And so I've been able over the past year, 3 years, been blessed enough to work with, larger Amazon brands in almost every category. And this gives me a lot of data. I've also have mentors and colleagues in the Amazon PPC community that have shared their data with me. And so, I've been able to see things that most people don't, and it's been a blessing, and it's allowed me to become better at who I am. And they've allowed me to test intelligently and learn about the platform. So something that I found out was a kind of a difference I noticed was copying campaigns. So at least for me, I don't know how this happened, but basically we copied a bunch of campaigns in our AMS account, these sponsored brands, and they just took off, man. I mean, it was crazy how like the type of results we were getting. And we were just like, I don't do that in PPC and sponsored products. I usually don't recommend doing that because of history, right? So with PPC and sponsored products, Amazon has already confirmed this in their documentation. I've seen this, that campaigns with more age perform better than new campaigns for a couple reasons. Number one, they've gone through the bid optimization cycle. And number two, Amazon learns. And so it gets smarter with that campaign. And so it's going to get better results. So copying campaigns did really, really well. Also the revenue distribution, like if you're working on let's say you have sponsored brands and PPC or AMS and PPC, what we've seen is that about 30% of total ad sales come from the PPC, or not the PPC, the AMS, and then 70% come from the PPC. So that's a metric, that's a benchmark metric you can use when you're analyzing your account. It's not exact. It was an average across several brands, 7 and 8 figure brands, but that was what we came up with just to give us a benchmark of because some people might be like, hey, I'm not scaling my AMS ads enough because they're not the same revenue as my PPC. Well, we've used a large data set to confirm that the volume isn't as high. Optimization methods are different too. We use different optimization methods for sponsored products versus AMS. And that's because we've just, basically on sponsored product side, we tried this method and it killed it, so we kept it. And then on the AMS side, we tried a different method and it did really, really well. Oh, wait, hold on. Pull this up. Cool. So you guys remember this right here, right? You guys remember this data, the AMS data, where we did really, really well on this account. It was crazy growth, really, really great, really unique as well, because March is, I've been getting a lot of reports from my students and people that I know that March and April have been very difficult months. So if you're having a difficult time with sales, you're not the only one. I'm getting several reports about sales slowing down around this time. So if you're having that issue, I feel bad for you. But it seems like it's happening to several accounts. This account, and it just blew up. But what was really interesting we saw was I looked at the 7 out of the top 10 campaigns are copy campaigns. And this performance has been consistent for several months. Now, this is the AMS data. This is sponsored brands. So I pulled the top 10 performing campaigns in March. And I've seen like over the past several months, these have been the top performing campaigns. And so they're doing really, really well. And all we did was copy them. We just copied them over. But keep in mind that when you do this, you always have to keep in mind that when you copy it, it originally might not do good. It might be a little higher ACOS or something like that to get through the optimization cycle. But I think the magic is not only in this specific tactic, but the bid optimization processes. Because you want to optimize bids, right? You have to learn how to optimize bids in a really, really formulaic way, and target different keywords based on the metrics that they meet. Like we have a formula called silent bleeders, where if they meet these filters, these are called silent bleeders. And then we've got the M formula, and we got a bunch of formulas. So I think that's part of it here, is that we use formulas to get this. And, if you want to test this, I always recommend it on your best campaigns, the campaigns that are performing the best for you. Why not PPC? We kind of covered that before. Why the history thing. So before you go and copy your best AMS sponsored brand campaigns, remember the missing link, bid optimization. We have a lot of formulas for bid optimization for the AMS side. We have 3 launch formulas that help us determine the starting bids for each keyword. And then we have 5 foundational formulas, the formulas we use to change bids for all running keywords. Now, I kind of step back for a second. I encourage you to just be like, wow, okay, so these guys really take a formulaic approach to bid management. So that prompts the question for you, right? How do you do that? How do you come up with formulas, right? And so if you've got like 1 or 2 formulas, you can say, hey, maybe I should create a few more formulas. Maybe we can bucket keywords in a different way. That's kind of how I think of it. It's like a starting point for analysis. So I'm going to cover one of the formulas today. Basically, like covering all the formulas would take a really, really long time. And so I'm just going to do one, because that'd be 8 formulas. So here's the length of time the bids are based off of. This is what we use for. Now, guys, I want to specify that the length of time the bids are based off, this is for our AMS and sponsored brands. Now, when I say AMS, I'm talking about sponsored brands and product display ads. So, and then when I talk about sponsored brands, I'm just referring to sponsored brands and Seller Central. So we use the last 4 weeks data and lifetime data to make bid changes. So I, take note of that. And the frequency of the bid changes. So headline search ads, we do it on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and product display ads, we do Thursdays and Sundays. So we do twice a week. And it's pretty congruent with how we do it with the sponsored products as well. Like we do cut bleeders Monday and Thursday, and then we do controlling the ACOS either Monday and Thursday, depending on the effectiveness of the formulas. So for headline search ads, it's twice a week, product display ads twice a week. Now, I will tell you this, man, most people, especially businesses that have scaled, if they're getting to 50, 100K a month, 100K plus a month, their frequency of bid changes goes down significantly. Because when you start your Amazon business, you're just in there. You're just like, you're figuring it out. You're trying to figure everything out, and you're doing everything. You're optimizing maybe too much sometimes. But when you start to scale, then you're like, oh my gosh, like I don't have enough time. The most common thing that I see is like people, they do once a week, which is okay. That's okay. Or they do once every 2 weeks, once a month. I've had people say they never do their bids anymore ever since they've scaled up to like 100K or 200K a month. They're like, I don't even have time for it. And I don't know how to do it, right? They're limited because what were they doing before? They were using Campaign Manager. So now they're like, and then I tell them I do it twice a week. They're like, man, I'm probably losing so much money. And I'm like, yeah, You probably are. So I can say that with confidence because we see it all the time. So product display ads and then headline search ads. Now it's going to get tricky, right? Like with headline search ads, you can make bulk changes. You can change the headline search ad bids using a bulk file, but with product display ads, you cannot do that. Product display ads are a real pain in the butt if you guys have experienced them. If not, that's okay too. But with product display ads, there's no bulk functionality and there's no ability to change the bids in the API to my knowledge. And so we have to use a web scraper software to do that. So that helps us manage the bids for the product display ads. So this is what we do, right? This is kind of what we do with our stuff. We use if statements. We basically use if statements to ensure the formula never hurts a keyword that's already performing well. We have an if statement that protects all keywords that are already hitting below our target ACOS. So we use like if then statements. So here we go. If the keyword's new bid after running the M formula is lower, so the new bid is like lower than the current bid and the current ACOS is under the target ACOS, then no bid change will be made and the keyword bid will be left the same. So if then statement, right? So let's see, if the keyword's new bid is lower than the current bid and current ACOS is under target ACOS, then we don't touch it. And here's what it looks like. So how do we put that into a formula? This is the M formula, guys. So M formula, spend times target ACOS divided by current ACOS, right? So this is going to be a formula here, then divided by clicks. And then we got the results over here. So the new bid would be $1 in this situation. So the spend was $40, right? Target ACOS is 25%. And then you divide that by 50%, which is our current ACOS, and divide it by the total number of clicks. That's going to equal 20 over 20. So our new bid is $1. Now, you can take a look at this and take a look at it and see what you think. But as you can see here, we use a lot of parameters to make decisions because, we're not just using arbitrary parameters. We're using data-driven parameters. So for you guys, what is this? So you can copy this and use this for yourself, right? You can copy this and use this for yourself and test it. And I think another thing is not only test it, you can start thinking about like these are the formulas we're using to get results, right? And so in your head, you're like, hey, if these guys are using this type of like formulaic approach, man, like I got to start thinking like that. You know what I mean? I got to be like, all right, like my formula only has like spend times target ACOS or something like, or like, it uses a simpler formula, right? So and not all formulas need to be complicated, right? Not all of them they need to be, but if the parameters are really strong, then they can be. And generally with formulas, the more parameters they have, kind of the better because they can make multiple decisions. And so keep that in mind when you're doing this. And this is cool. This is this is the M formula. So our current bid was $2.25. Now our new bid is going to be $1 for this one. And I will tell you, these are the exact same systems that Carlos Fabrega and Aaron Moreno used to get results. Like this formula here, we use that formula. They use the other formulas as well, but this is one of the formulas out of all of the formulas, those formulas I talked about before for sponsored brands, that basically gets them from being unprofitable to profitability quickly. So it gets them through that optimization cycle. When you first launch a campaign, you're in a test phase. You're going to spend money. You're going to waste money. That's like the nature of the beast. But when you have really good formulas, they get you out of that test phase as quickly as possible without sacrificing sales and gets you to profitability. Because our goal ever since, started working with AMS and PPC and AMS. And I got to give this to my former business partner, Taylor, who created this. He's the AMS guy, and he created this. And, you know, when me and him were doing PPC and AMS, basically our job was profitability. We weren't working with CPGs. Like, basically we weren't working with like Tide or Nike. We weren't working with really big brands that didn't care about their profitability as much, or they were willing to sacrifice profitability for market share. We worked with private label brands, you know, brands that were doing 100K and above, and they were, you know, they were like, we need to focus on profitability. So all of our formulas were like in the back of our head. We're like, hey, you know, will this thing get me to profitability quicker? So yeah, use those suggested timeframes, the bid frequency, and the formulaic bid approach. Test it for yourself. Take what you can and use it, right? Like, you know, you might not like all of it, right? But, you know, take what you can and use it for yourself to see if you can get some results. That's the goal here. Oh yeah, hold on. And so we use software, and I know I said this before, but you know, what makes it scalable for us is those formulas. We use software for the product display ads, and then we use the bulk files for the headline search ads or the sponsored brands to make these changes. Yep. So I know I said this before, but do you remember the interviews I shared with Carlos and Aaron? Those guys are using the exact systems, those formulas that I talked about, to scale profitable sales. Profitable, guys, profitable sales, because, you know, we don't focus on just, oh, we got more sales, that's the best part. No, we have to get a profit, because, you know, we're working with brands, you know, that are doing 100K and above. You know, it's a few people in their company, and that business supports their friends and family. And so our job is to make sure that we make sure that we hit the targets so that they can continue to support their family and friends and grow. So that's kind of how I always view it. All right, and the last one. Now this is a huge one. Now, this one it's something I wholeheartedly believe in, and I invest my money and time into. I highly recommend investing in mentorship. Now, when I started in business, I was 3 years ago, when I started being an entrepreneur, I did everything myself. I didn't have the money, man. I couldn't even, I was afraid. I literally had like, I went to the, where was it? I think it was like unemployment or SNAP or something. But I had like a card, like a debit card that I could buy food with. I think it was unemployment, but that I put on my table, and I said, I'm not going to use this card until I'm out of money. And so I was running on savings. I was like super bootstrapped, you know, just worried, man, because paying my bills and all that stuff. So I did everything myself because I didn't have the money to do it. I really didn't. And so I get it, man. If your business is small and you're not at that point yet, then investing in mentorship might be a hard thing to do. But as I started to get bigger and garner more resources, I started realizing that investing in mentors is huge. And not only investing my time, but my money as well. And man, I'm telling you, it's paid dividends for me. And so I highly recommend it. Now, this is what gets people results really fast, like crazy, for me at least as well. And I didn't realize that. I have coaches now. I have a nutritionist. I have a mastermind that I invest in. I mean, I have people around me that are better than me at their certain areas. And dude, it puts me through the moon. Like Tony Boffa is a good example. Tony Boffa, he started working with me a while ago, and he had no clients. And he was just an Amazon business. He was doing 10K a month, and he invested in my program. And then he went up to 50K. We dropped his ACoS by half. And then guess what he started doing? Brands started approaching him about working together, and he used our systems and processes to scale those brands. So now he's got a new revenue stream. So that's like a really cool case study of how someone invested in mentorship and not only scaled their own Amazon business, but started taking on a new revenue stream in the consulting side. Absolutely nuts, guys. So invest in mentorship and learn from the best. I know this is more of a business type thing, but honestly, man, it's the reason that I am here today, man. I mean, going from where I was to now, it's a different mindset, man. When I was small and scrappy, I couldn't make these investments, but my psychology has changed. I have to think differently if I want to win. And I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. So how could I expect you to invest in my mentorship if I don't do it myself? I do. So here are the investments I make. I pay 30 grand a year for a mastermind. Me and my partner, my former business partner, we've invested more than 20K in training programs together. I invested 7K in a coaching program. I've invested in, online fitness training programs. I have a nutritionist. I mean, I'm doing things that I never thought I would do because I want to win. So, not everybody will resonate with this, but those aren't the people that are necessary. Like, if you don't have the resources at the time, that's fine. But if you do have the resources and it's not for you, then that's fine. But people are, I'm just learned to really appreciate people who are really good at certain things. And that's why I'm here. And why am I a good mentor, right? So why would you want to work with me? It's because I've been doing Amazon PPC and AMS for 3 years and 2 months. And have you seen in this presentation, I've gotten really good results, and you can see my skill sets. And really, like, my goal here was to provide as much value for you in terms of like becoming more technically savvy and understanding the platform much better than you did before. And you saw the results I got for Carlos and Aaron. I mean, I've gotten results for even more businesses. For those of you that follow me, I do like customer interviews. I just did one today. I always post results. These are real people getting real results. I think a lot of people in this space don't like, some people like think that doing like mentorships and stuff like that is not a good investment, but it's your job to evaluate whether this investment will give you a return or not. And then if you believe so, you got to figure out how long it's going to take you to get that return, and then make that investment if it will work. If not, then you move on, right? So we're at the end of the webinar, right? And you've got 2 options at this point. And so 2 options, basically you can continue wasting hours using Campaign Manager to change bids, launch campaigns, not having systems and checklists, not doing the things that I covered, like not using good formulas, things like that, right? So the stuff that I covered, not running studies for yourself so that you can figure out how to manipulate placement, things like that. Or you can scale your sponsored products and sponsored brands using both files and software and completely dominate your market by continually testing new keywords with keyword research methods. So I have a quick question for you guys. And if you don't mind, I just want to get this for my own feedback. Was this a valuable webinar? Please just put in yes or no, just because I want to figure out whether or not I provided value for you guys. Okay. Yeah, please be honest with me, man. Don't hesitate to tell me the truth, because I always get nervous for these things. And one of the things I don't want to do is I don't want to come off as too salesy or not giving enough like content and value. And so like I'm always, basically like I'm always like thinking to myself, how do I, I'm like you guys, right? I sell a product just like you guys. And so I'm always like, when I do these presentations, I'm like, how do I get people to work with me? Because I want to help them, because it keeps my business afloat and it's going to help you scale. So how do I do that in this presentation without seeing, without sacrificing the value? So yeah, cool. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. We got one guy. Cool. For the most part, we got yeses. Man, I wish I could like download this, because here, let me just go through it, because I want to make sure it's a data. You know me, I'm a data set guy. So, okay, cool. Very valuable. All right. Thank you very much. My pleasure. Defo worth it. Timothy, thank you so much. All right. To be determined. I love it. Somebody said to be determined, which I love. I think he's thinking to himself, like, I got to test this stuff, which I really like. All right. I love it, guys. I'm so happy. Yep. Amazing. All right, perfect. My favorite is this. You did the best, not a sale presentation that leaves you without any concrete information behind it. Man, thank you guys. I was so nervous. You have no idea. As soon as I saw so many people signed up, I was just like, man, I really hope I can serve them well. That's my goal, man. It's my goal. All right, cool. So if you do want to work with me, here's what you got to do. So let me give you like just a rough timeline for our clients. So a lot of people ask me when we're on a call and we're determining whether or not to work together. They ask me like, hey, how long does it take me to get results? I would say there's these certain videos these certain processes and systems that I have that if you implement them, you start getting results within 24 to 48 hours, and they've done really, really well. So I would say that, yeah. And then, okay, Q&A time. Let's do it. Let me get through this last part, and then let's do the Q&A. 24 to 48 hours. And then, so if you kind of want to learn, well, if you want to basically work with me, I'll go ahead to the end. We'll basically do we'll have a talk, a 45-minute talk with me or one of my team members to determine whether or not, basically what we will do is on that call, we will find the holes where we can fill in the gaps, right? We're looking for holes. Like if we get on a call with you and we can't provide you a return on investment, then we won't offer it to you at all. But if we feel like we can, then I will offer it to you. I don't let everybody into my training program, and it's just because, the bottom line is because I don't feel like I can help them. So that's why we have phone calls. And so if you want to book a call, go to this link, ppcamsaccelerator.com/LW schedule. And that will be the link that you use. I'll pop it in the thing. And if you guys want to book a call, go there. You can schedule it. I send it to you guys. Cool. All right, cool. So let's go into Q&A. I'm going to go up to the top and start going through these real quick. I'll be here as long as we need to, guys. So let me know. All right. So originally I wasn't going to I didn't really think about doing a recording for this thing just because I wanted it to be pretty, just for a small audience. But I got a lot of feedbacks, people wanting to do the recording just because the main reason that they wanted to do the recording was a couple reasons. We got people in different countries like China, Australia, where it's really late for them, so they can't make it. And then some people here have requested it. So I'll go ahead and write down, send recording. I'll send the replay. All right. I just made a note to do that. So yes, I'll do that. Vojkan, just answer your question. Guru says, will you be posting the presentation and other materials? So I won't post the presentation. I will post the replay. I'm trying to think, should I post the presentation? Maybe I could post a PDF copy where you guys could have as a reference. Would that be cool with you guys? Yeah. All right, cool. So yeah, I'll do that. So I'll do let me make a note, PDF copy of presentation, and I'll send that out as well. So that way a piece of content. Can you make the screen larger? I did that already. Will you, so Farai says, will you put a replay link? Yep, I'll do that. Prem asked me, when are you leaving for Hong Kong? I'm leaving next week. I can't remember. I think it's the 23rd. I'll be on a flight to Hong Kong. Let's see. Will the slides be shared? Yes, Carl, I will do that. Simon asked, what is AMS? So AMS is technically Amazon Marketing Services. It is the advertising platform for vendors. And a lot of people, even though they're not vendors, they got into it and Amazon grandfathered them in so that they can continue to use the platform. So it's just a different ad platform. Okay. Yes. Hold on. Where is the ad displayed when you target product pages? So you've got different ad placements, right? There's like rest of search, or was it? Hold on, rest of search. Product pages. When it says product pages, it's going to be in the listing. In the listing. So it says sponsored. We're doing separate campaigns for that very reason. How do you treat your campaigns differently? Wait, how do you treat your campaigns differently? We are doing separate campaigns for that very reason. How do you treat your campaigns differently? Real quick, let me know, Amber Norell. So I'm going to go ahead and just answer this for you. How do we treat our campaigns differently? So really what it boils down to is the naming system. So we have a naming system for our campaigns. So it's the SKU plus the keyword research method that we used. So like we name the keyword research methods we use. So like CST would be like customer search terms. So it'd be like SKU plus CST, plus we put the date, and then we put the match type, because each campaign is its own match type. So that's kind of how we treat the campaigns differently. And the reason we do that is because it allows us to give us budget control at the match type level, and at the SKU level as well, and at the methodology level. What is top of search? Top of search is the first ad at the top. So if you type in anything on Amazon, it'll say top of search. Oh, let me see here if I can. Amazon, let's just do it. We'll just do like, I don't know. Yeah. So this would be kind of like, so this would be top of search. It's the first ad. It's top of search. Wednesday, Shay says that. All right. And guys, I got people from all over the planet on this thing. So if I get your name wrong, I do apologize in advance. So Wednesday, Che. And if you want to correct me, just send me a voice message pronouncing your name, and I'll correct myself. So are you doing PPC by using PPC report only? Do you use any other software? So Wednesday asks, are you doing PPC by using PPC reports only? We use, so with advertising, for keyword research, we use suggested keywords. We do use the customer search term report, and then we use tools like Helium 10 and Merchant Words, like some keyword research tools to find keywords. And then do we use any software? We use one piece of technology. It's our own. It's a software that we built a couple years ago. We decided to invest in getting into the API pretty early on, just because there were certain systems and processes that we wanted to make repeatable. So in terms of software, for the most part, I just use my own. Mark Hodiern asks, 30-day or 60-day search term report, Sean? I like to do 60-day because I like the larger data set. So I always use 60-day. I wish I could even go further. It's good now. 15 minutes late. Michael Hugh, is there going to be a replay available? Yeah, the people have spoke. So yes. All right, Alexandra. Yep, cool. Nick Patel asks, are you really live? Yes, Nick, I'm really live. He asked it a second time. Nick, I have a quick question. What would make you think I'm not live? That's the question I want to know. Which software is that? I think you're referring to the software. Henrietta Tan asks which software it is that, added all those negative keywords. I don't remember off the top of my head. Honestly, I don't remember which one. And I wouldn't want to, just because, I probably wouldn't want to say it anyways, because even though it had a negative effect on this person's account, I haven't tested this specific software. And I don't like to say whether or not something is good unless I've tested it pretty diligently myself. Campaign manager. We do it at, where do you, Christopher Gramlich asks, where do you do this at? Campaign manager. I think I answered because he said things. All right. Oh, Jason asks, can you do bulk unnegate, or is that one by one? Jason Pratt. Hey, Jason, you can bulk unnegate. So you can do that by just changing the status of those negative keywords. You can literally change it from enabled to paused in the bulk file and just copy that across the board. So like if you had 10,000 negative keywords, you could literally like pause those in like 2 minutes. Negative keywords in all campaigns. Yeah, you can target negative keywords in all campaigns, or you can segment them out by adding filters. Jack Bijou asks, is this guy a joke? Technically, I'm not a joke, because a joke, I think, is like words that make people laugh, and I'm a human, so I'm not a joke, Jack. Okay, Fanor Kaye asks, can I have the replay? Yes. Yossi, appreciate the love, man. Got a lot of love, which I'm very, very happy about. Thank you guys so much for the positive encouragement. I needed it, man. I get nervous on these things. So Lisa King, when you share the buy box with other sellers, do you still get good information from your campaigns? Man, that's a really good question. Honestly, if you share the buy box, I've talked to a few sellers where they are sharing the buy box, and I don't do PPC for them because the data is not accurate. So like, here's why. If another seller has the buy box, you don't know what they're doing. Like if they're changing the price, if they're changing content, if they're doing these things that could affect conversion rate, and you don't know what kind of advertising they're running too. If they're not running hardly any advertising, then you're not getting any like exposure in the ad auction. So like PPC becomes really hard when it comes to sharing the buy box. So I always recommend low bids, just generally across the board. Cool. Oh, cool. So Mihaita, I know Mihaita Radu. He said, quick tip, I add data to the saved bulk file name. For example, Opti 416. So like you would put Opti 4.16, like optimized. Any software you recommend? Wednesday for PPC. I use my own software. I don't use a lot of other software just because, I guess just because I have my own. So how long is this webinar? So far, Jack asked, how long is this webinar? So far, it started at 1, so 1.5 hours at the moment. What do you do when you copy AMS campaigns? This is Carol Daw. How to pick which campaign to copy and what to do with the copied campaigns. So first off, I want to preface this by stating that you should have a bid optimization system in place, right? That's good. So you want to make sure you're optimizing the bids because you don't want to launch these campaigns without having an optimization plan. And so when I copied the AMS campaigns, we usually took our best campaigns. Now, how do you define best? We generally define best as campaigns that are less than or equal to our target ACOS. That's how we did. That's kind of the parameter we use. Regina Peter Bergsky. So you copy from AMS to sponsored brands or copy within AMS? That's a really good question. What we did was in this specific situation, so we had it in AMS, so we had our campaigns in AMS, and we just copied them in AMS. So it was the same platform. We didn't copy them over to sponsored brands in Seller Central. So we just copied them in the AMS platform. Do you keep both running? Yes, I do keep both running. Like at the moment, both of them are running. Eddie Kawal, are these campaigns different? No, they're duplicates. They're copies of each other. Carl says data doesn't lie. Love this. Meet Carl. We are on the same page. I'm a huge data guy, so yeah, I love it. What is the rationale behind the M formula? Let's go back here. spend. Well, think about it. The rationale is like it's in the parameters, right? So spend, so we're taking into consideration the volume of spend, our target ACOS versus our current ACOS, which we've done with other formulas, finding that delta. I think that really helps. And then using clicks, which is just like a traffic parameter. So that's kind of the logic we started with. It was basically like a formula where we were like, hey, like, what's a good way to take really important parameters and put it into a formula? And then, because that's how a formula always starts. It's an idea. It's like, hey, like based on my knowledge of Amazon advertising and what I've done, like what could I go ahead and do here? And so we would just be like, hey, what are some of the most important parameters? Well, a lot of people talked about target ACOS, current ACOS, and then we would create formulas, and then the formulas would work. And so really, like, it started off as like plugging in important parameters. And then once we started testing them and finding that they get results, then it was just like, hey, what do we keep and what do we ditch? And so at that point, it's about using results to make decisions. Moshi Farkash, just to make sure we're only talking about AMS in this example, correct? Yeah, well, the formulas, it depends on what you're talking about. So the formulas we use in Sponsored Brands in Seller Central and AMS, Sponsored Brands and Products. So we use them in both platforms. We just don't use them for sponsored products. Leanne C, what is the difference between the end formula and 1 minus current ACOS minus target ACOS multiplied by max bid. The difference is in the parameters. Like it's a different formula itself, but the main difference is that, Leanne, we use the one that you mentioned, that's called the G formula. We use that one for sponsored products, and then the M formula for the AMS. So that the difference is just where we use them, how we utilize them. Which software are you using? PPC Agility. Okay. Actually, that's a good question. So which software are we using for, I think a lot of people were referring to the product display ads. So which software are we using? We use our own software. It's like a web scraper. So it's our own in-house thing that we use. Very valuable. Thank you so much. All right. Genius, learned a bunch. Moshi, love it. The system table is a killer. Thank you, Maria. Thank you very much for this webinar, Sean. My pleasure, Maria. Defo worth it. Thank you, Tim, so much, man. Please send me this slide. Lynn, I'm going to send the slides. We kind of determined that. Mihaita says you're sharing too much for free. I love it. I love it. I love it. To be determined. John, nice presentation. Cool. Jeremy, hold on. Gotcha. Cool. So this is good feedback. The content could be a little more organized. Gotcha. I missed the first part. We'll be able to listen to it. Judy Mitchell asks if we'll get a replay. Yeah, everybody will get a replay for sure. Thank you, Christian. Awesome content with the mouse emoji. Love me the mouse emoji. Avery, do I offer training? I do offer training, Avery. I do, man. So book a call, man. Book a call right here. Avery Lynn. Julianne Furline. In terms of weekly, I love how many different people are on here, man. This is amazing. Seriously. What a blessing. In terms of weekly update, so I use the formula filtering 4 weeks data to decide new bid. Yes. Yep. So you'll take your 4 weeks data, you take that 4 week data set, right? And then you'll use those numbers and you'll apply the M formula to that data, and then that'll give you the new bid, Julianne. You are amazing. Thank you, Krishna Medrano. Appreciate it. Philip Wynn. Yes, it was helpful, but could be more structured. That's the second one. Cool. Possibly provide an outline. Hold on, let me make a note to that. More structure. I'm down to improve, guys. I'm always down to improve. Outline. Cool. Thanks, Philip, for the feedback, man. Really, really appreciate it. Okay, didn't have time to fully process it. Perfect. You did the best. Not a sales presentation without any confidence. Thank you, Moshe. Appreciate it, man. Moshe Farkash. Mark Jennings. Info on campaign structure would have been useful. Mark Jennings. Campaign structure. That's a good question. Well, it depends on how you define it, but in generally what we do with campaign structure is we basically, like with campaign structuring, we use that naming system. And we put the SKU in the campaign name. We put the SKU in the ad group name. We put the keyword research method that we used. So like, for example, CSTKWR is one of the keyword research methods that we use. And so we use that as well. And that really helps out a lot because it helps us identify what parameters we used. And then on top of that, we use the date and the match type. That's how we structure the campaigns. And the campaign name structure is the same as the ad group name structure. So that allows us to filter by SKU. And in the campaign manager, it allows you to filter by date, filter by match type so that you can quickly see data. Too fast. Okay. Let me put that down. Awesome. Thank you guys for the feedback. Guru Charan, where and how do I sign up for your program? Book a call, my man. Book a call. Thanks for the webinar. It's great. Thank you, Avery, for coming. Thank you for your time. I know I forgot to thank you guys, man. You guys are busy people. You guys are selling on Amazon. You know, you guys have busy lives. So the fact that you spent some time with me means a lot. Jean Montalvo. When analyzing data, do you use pivot tables? Yes. So we use pivot tables for, we have a system called forecasting for PPC and AMS, and we use pivot tables for the forecasting to find out how much money we could potentially generate for an account in 30 days and 60 days. So we do have a forecasting module. On top of that, we have for when we're calculating starting bids, we use a pivot table to find the historical cost per click. And then we create like an average. And then, so we use a pivot table to isolate the CPC by match type. And that allows us to create a new bid. Thanks so much for your time. Christina Zafarov, thank you. I know it's a free webinar. Thank you, Wednesday. Nice job, man. Thank you, Mark Jennings. Software do you use, or is it in-house? Carl Connolly, in-house. Too much content. All right. Maybe I gotta figure this out. George, Q&A time. Yes, sir. Q&A time. Really good webinar. I am driving. Sorry for the late response. No problem, Miguel. And went through everything. Are you willing to let us know? Okay, cool. You the man, PPC God, AKA my PPC mentor, Colin Smith. Thank you, Colin. Appreciate. Whew. I'm feeling that positivity. Whew, that one hit me hard. Like took me back a little bit in my chair. Thank you so much, man. Carly Gabison, will there be a replay? Yes, there will be, Carly. Okay, Arnie Polak, what minimum does the Amazon account have to do in order to work with you? From what we've seen, so like our data supports, now, doesn't mean that we'll be able to work with you because it depends on like what type of opportunities we can find out in the phone call. But I would say the minimum is $15,000 per month. So we found that Amazon businesses between $15,000 per month and $7 million per month on Amazon do the best in our training program. But on top of that, we have to have the call to find out where the opportunities are, and then, you know, potentially work together. But those are kind of our revenue minimums, our revenue range. And so that's the revenue range and private label. We do have a couple wholesale people in the training program, but if you do retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, any type of arbitrage, you know, our program wouldn't be a good fit. It wouldn't give you the return that you want. So honestly, like mainly private label. If you own the buy box 100%, and if you got pretty good margins, then I think wholesale accounts can benefit as well. Ho fam, what software do you use? It's hard. I use my software, PPC Agility. I don't use any other software, so it's hard for me to really recommend because I haven't used them in a while. Thanks, Sean. Carly Cabison. Thank you, Carly. Carl Shaw. Do you have recommendation for basic information on Amazon PPC? That's a good question because I don't usually do a lot of content. I don't do a lot of content around basic information, right? A lot of the information I give is, intermediate, advanced level stuff. And it's, it's tricky. Like, I always, me, man, I'm a huge Google guy. So I like to use be like Amazon PPC match types. Which match type? How do you choose a keyword match type? Cool. Cool. What is a keyword? Phrase. This one's pretty good. This isn't bad. So I usually just, in terms of resources, if you go to there is a group called Amazon PPC Troubleshooting by Brian Johnson. He's a good friend of mine, one of my he's pretty much my first mentor in the market. And he has Amazon PPC. It's a good group for beginner level information. If you go to the files section of that area, there's PDFs and stuff that you can look at there. Or you can always use Google, like Amazon PPC plus, very specific keyword. If you just type in Amazon PPC beginner, you might not get the results that you want. I'm a huge search nerd. So cause I used to do SEO. So when it comes to searching for things, you always have to think hey, what's the best way to type in to find the information I want? You don't want something so specific that there might not be anything on the market, but you don't want it so broad that you'll get a bunch of irrelevant stuff. Let me know if that answers your question, Carl. Thanks on the recording, Mark Whitlock. My pleasure, Mark. Thank you. How do you move? So AK asks, how do you move search terms to a different campaign without losing position or ACOS? Okay. Move search terms. I think we have to do some definition stuff here. So moving a search term, are you talking about moving a search term or a keyword? So let's set up two scenarios. So moving a search term is fine, right? Because a search term, if the search term is the same as the keyword, then it's a keyword, right? But if the search term is different from the keyword, then moving that search term would be a good thing, right? It's not going to really cause problems for that keyword. It's actually better if you bid on it by itself. But if you're defining search term as the keyword itself in the campaign, I don't usually move keywords if I'm already bidding on them, just because I want to preserve the history of the campaign. Honestly, I've learned the hard way that you don't poke a sleeping bear with Amazon. What I mean by that is if something's doing well, don't go too crazy on amplifying its results. Just because we've seen that when we've increased bids and stuff, it ends up increasing our cost per click and stuff like that. And you definitely don't want to make radical changes on keywords that are doing really well. So how do we move search terms to different campaigns? So if we're defining a search term as a customer search term, then what we do is we duplicate it against the keyword, the existing keyword, and then we launch a new campaign to test it by itself. If we're defining a search term as a keyword, so we're bidding on a keyword in a campaign, then what we do is we just leave it there because we don't want to lose position or ACOS, right? We just want to keep it as is. Nikki Techin, awesome. It's a lot to take in. So getting this material is amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nikki, for coming. Thank you for your time. Yes. PDF is great. All right, we'll do Moshi. Carson Crane. Oh, that's a really good question. Carson Crane asks, how many products or ASINs do your success for sellers have? Man, that is a great question. Let me give you the general vibe here. Selling on Amazon is about launching SKUs to an extent. You want to have a significant SKU portfolio, but You don't just want to launch SKUs for the sake of launching SKUs. So it really depends, man. I have accounts where we have products, like one product will do $1 million in a month. One product will do $1 million in a month, right? Just that one SKU. But then I have other people who have, a lot more products and they do lower volume. Honestly, if you want to, I think personally, the approach that, I think is really good is to think of it like hitting singles. So focus on getting a lot of high cash flow, like high return on investment products that have lower volume, and just keep adding on SKUs. And then if one of them becomes a home run, that's great. But because if you go into competitive markets, then the return on investment is going to be extremely low whenever you start, because your marketing spend is going to be extremely high. And so the quantity of ASINs, I think it's just about figuring out, getting singles out the door. So if you had 10 ASINs doing $10,000 a month, that's $100K a month, right? So singles is a great mentality because it allows you to look for lower competition markets with a higher ROI, and it helps you with the cash flow situation. I say that because I work with so many brands that have man, I feel so bad for them. They're good people, just wrong market. So let me know if that answers your question, Carson. Steve says, please do more of these great presentations. I will, Steve. And I want to get better at it, man. I want to get really, really good at this. And I want to get better at having more structure. I want to have an outline and not move too quickly. Moshi says we don't use screenshots. Cool. Arnie Pollack asks, has there ever been an account you couldn't help, meaning they're optimized and you rejected it based on how well they've done? Yeah. Well, there have been accounts that have been completely optimized, and yeah, we were just like, hey man, we can't help you. But it's all about the pain point, right? If they're doing really well with optimization, but they're using Campaign Manager, then they might want to switch over to bulk files and we can help them there. So they could be completely well optimized, but they're not efficient. And it's really it boils down to the pain point. What's your pain point? That's what we need to optimize for, the actual pain point. Because some people, man, they just want they just want the best program and they know they're going to get results. I even had one guy say, he ended up working in the program and he just said, if I can get one good piece of information from this, I know it's going to be worth it. So he was just like, let's do it. So it depends on your specific pain point and what you need help improving upon. But we have turned people away that are, pretty well optimized. And they don't, and another thing is dude, we've turned people away that aren't optimized, but they don't think that they're not optimized. They'll be like, oh, I'm doing okay. I think I'm doing okay. Right? We know they're unoptimized and we're like, dude, you're unoptimized. They're like, oh, I think I'm doing okay. We can't help that person because, the need isn't there. And so if they join the program, they're not going to be motivated. So, I think that's a big thing. We've also rejected accounts for just, not being able to help them. Working in certain markets where it's extremely competitive, the prices are $25 and the cost per click are $2. So, man, it really depends on the reason that you want to work together, and then figuring out diagnosing how we can fill that gap if there is a gap. If we can't, then we don't want to. I don't want to sell something that I can't provide because it's an investment, right? It's an investment. So let me know if that answers your question, Arnie. I know it's not black or white there, but it really is situational. Stephen Nay says, how has your PPC launch strategy pace changed over the last few months, if at all? That's a good question. I would say it has changed over the last few months. And it's mainly because of the introduction of PPC, so that'd be sponsored products. So basically the introduction of product targeting and category targeting is kind of the main thing. So basically what we would do is, and I've become just more strategic with how I launch, right? So for example, we need to determine what's your daily spend, what's your target daily spend. So Steven, let's say I'm working with you and you go, hey Sean, I want to spend $100 a day for this product. Say, all right, let me write this down, $100 a day. So we've got auto campaigns, we've got keyword targeting, and then we've got, product targeting and category targeting. So let's put this out. I want to spend 40 on autos, 40 on keyword, and we'll spend 20 bucks on the, actually we'll spend 15 because Amazon tends to overspend. So we want to give like the majority of the budget to the auto and the keyword targeting because they're going to drive most of the volume. We'll do 15 bucks there because even though that equals 95, Amazon always tends to overspend. So that'll probably end up equaling 100. And then we launch, 3 auto campaigns and we waterfall those bids. We use the keywords that we did our keyword research with for the listing. And we bid on those in the 3 match types, all 3 match types, right? The manual keyword. And then for product targeting, we find our competitors and we target them. And then we distribute our spend based on our budgets, or we distribute our spend to each campaign. So like we take that $40 and distribute it between the 3 auto campaigns. So that it's a little different. It's a little more strategic than it used to be, for sure. Let me know if that answers your question, Stephen. Hey, Gokhan Chincelli. Thank you for your webinar, Sean. This is Gokhan from Turkey. What's going on, man? We talked a while back. I hope you're doing well, and I hope that this provided you with value. Oh, cool. Raul Marian says, how can you target rest of search placement with bid adjustments? So what can you do? You can basically, how can you target rest of search? This increase, do what I did, man. I mean, dude, I decreased the bid itself by 80%. And then, if I was bidding $1, I decreased that to 20 cents. And then you would go to rest of search and you would pump that up to 800%. And then you would leave the other 2 blank. And then what it would do is it would end up just doing rest of search for you. Yeah, that's what happened with that study I did. Let me know if that answers your question, Raul. Moshi Farkash asks, so everyone has AMS enabled? No, not everyone has AMS. And honestly, like if you don't have AMS now, you're not going to get it pretty much because Amazon's really consolidating their vendor platform. Fairly recently, DigiDay published an article stating that a lot of Amazon brands were not getting POs, purchase orders, for their vendor accounts. And it's because Amazon's consolidating the vendor side. They did that once before when they got rid of Vendor Express. So getting AMS is hardest, the hardest that it's ever been. Used to be real easy. When when they had Vendor Express, anyone could get in, right? There was a huge workaround. Dude, I used to get in. I used to just take my clients' accounts and open a Vendor Express account and technically you were supposed to send in products, but they never cared if you did or not. So we just never sent any products and we had AMS and we still do. Any additional tips? Amber, TOS, top of search, product page, and rest of search. Any additional tips for each? No, I don't think I have anything additional on top of that. I guess one tip would be like, before you go in and make adjustments, analyze your existing data. Pull that data and find out, hey, like how does my product perform in these different ad placements? Because it gives you insight into the behavior of those specific ad placements and it gives you benchmarks, right? Like if you just let your campaign run by itself, then you can break those placements out and then you have benchmark data, historical data. You can say, all right, so I'm going to target top of search and I want to compare this to my previous data. That's how I do it, get some benchmark. If I have 1,000 SKUs and a lot of variation, what is the best PPC structure? Well, if you have 1,000 SKUs, you're probably not, I wouldn't recommend running ads for every one of your SKUs. I recommend running ads for your top products because running ads for every SKU is going to cause problems, man. It's going to cause huge problems. So I always recommend doing it for your top SKUs. Now, if you have a lot of variations, I do have a proposed different structure because I agree. If you've got one product with like 20 variations and you want to launch PPC for those, you do not want to launch 20 individual campaigns. So here's what I recommend doing for that. Creating a shell campaign. So a shell. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to put the product name plus the keyword research methodology, plus the dates, plus the match type. That's the shell. And then within that shell, what you're going to do is you're going to create, let's say you have 20 variations, you're going to create 20 ad groups within that campaign, 20 ad groups. And you're going to do, for naming it, instead of using the product name, you're going to use the SKU for each ad group. And each ad group is going to be a different SKU. That way, in the search term report, when you're isolating data, you can filter by ad group name and isolate the SKU still. So you can still get that SKU level data, just using a slightly different structure based on the amount of variations. So that's how I would do that Wednesday. Let me know if I answered that question all right. Each SKU has a campaign, or each parent SKU has a campaign. I just answered that one. So let me know if I didn't. Philip. Oh, wow. We have a lot of questions. Cool. Let's do it. All right. Philip Wynn says, are you able to utilize AMS in Campaign Manager Seller Central? Are your methods more focused on AMS over CMSC? So, I would say test it. So are you able to use, so you're not able to technically utilize AMS on the Seller Central side just because they're two different platforms. But AMS has sponsored brands, and so does Seller Central. So if you have if your brand is registered, then what can you do? You can do sponsored brands. And so I say test it. I say go for it. I mean, it worked on the AMS side, and just make sure you got those bid optimization processes and systems set up. Because we use like the bid optimization, like the M formula and all that. We use that for sponsored brands in Seller Central and sponsored brands in AMS. We use it for both platforms. Let me know if that answers your question, Philip. Farkash says sound wave art. I don't know what that means. So Maria Co says, sorry for this noob question, no worries at all. For the naming structure, does that mean each SKU equals one campaign? Maria, I would say use the shell approach that I just mentioned. Use the shell approach that I just mentioned if you have a lot of variations. But if you don't have a lot of variations, then yes, each SKU is its own campaign. And remember, only run ads for your top selling SKUs, because we've seen that SKUs that don't get a lot of organic traffic or traction, just advertising, it's just, you lose so much money. Juliana Furline says, if for PPC I do weekly updates, should I also use 4 weeks filter to decide on changes? Honestly, so on the PPC side, the sponsored product side, I use 14 days. That's what I use. So AMS, we use different time frames and different formulas. And that's just because, they were systems that were built separately and they performed really well with their separate systems. And that's why we kept them. So for PPC, I use 14-day historical data, and I try to exclude the previous 24 to 48 hours just for sale attribution purposes. Let's see. Roberto Oriema. Let's see. What do you do for long tail campaigns? Can you share a bit your approach there? So we just how do we do that? Sorry, pardon me. So I would say long tail campaigns, we just really focus on having systems and processes about pulling search terms from the search term report and bucketing those. So we'll take greater than or 3 orders and then 1 to 2 orders, and we'll treat them separately. So it's all about finding data sources and then using that data source. So Helium-10 Cerebro, we have a process for that allows us to find longer tail keywords. Now, I mean, I don't want to in terms of sharing the process too much. Basically what you want to do is, I would say the big thing, Roberto, is when you want to find long tail keywords, really the number one thing that you have to focus on, because anybody can go out and use a reverse ASIN or a keyword research tool. That's totally fine. But here's the piece that most people miss. You got to deduplicate your data. So if you want to find long tail keywords, you need a deduplication process. And that is what allows you to try and make sure that you don't bid on existing keyword. You don't copy keywords in the same match type, because they're only going to cost you more money, and you're not going to get that incremental organic value that you would get from something that's unique. That's why we focus on deduplication. Matt Wessels, do you only offer a training program or management as well? So right now I only offer a training program. I do have an agency that manages 7 and 8 figure brands, but I haven't worked with a new account in about a year. And that's just because the training program has been just doing very well and getting really good results for people. So we've been really focused on making sure that we continue to keep the quality there. Let me know if that answers your question, Matt. Hold on. Fanor Kaye. If you switch from campaign manager to PPC, would the ranking of products and keyword be affected in any way? Could you define switch from campaign manager to PPC? Just because PPC is in campaign manager, so I'm trying to figure out like what. Yeah, let me know. Could you clarify that? George Borowski. Goal for ACoS is less than 30%. What do you see in average on the big accounts? That's a really good question. Honestly, we see between 20 and 50% on the big boys. And I'm talking aggressive. Like, I mean, I've got people running 40, 45%, doing a few $1 million a month. And the reason, their logic is we just want to, take up as much market share as possible. So I would say between 20 and 50% for the big sellers is kind of, and then like in supplements and stuff, like the bigger brands, you have to tolerate a higher ACoS because the CPCs are so high. So that's what I would say for there. Yeah. And that is my experience of 3 years, 2 months, and, working with all types of accounts. All the way from starting sellers to sellers doing $7 million a month. Fanor Kaye. Do you add negative keywords to both auto and manual campaigns? Now I might get roasted for this one. I don't know. We'll see, man. I actually really don't. I shy away from using negative keywords. And I'll tell you why. It's just because, so here's why. Because one time I was like, I opened a search term report. And I was like, hey, I'm going to use a bunch of filters to figure out which keywords I want to negative, right? I was like, I'm going to filter by click-through rate. I'm going to filter by number of clicks. I'm going to filter by number of impressions. I layered on these filters and I saw that there were a lot of keywords that were really relevant to our product. And it was like, oh man, what do we do here? And so, because a negative would wipe it out, right? Versus if I lower the bid, it doesn't wipe it out completely. It just decreases the bid. And so because negative keyword research is kind of a manual process, I have shied away from it a little bit because I haven't found great parameters to use. And then if I do find great parameters, it's such a small data set that the result you'll get is insignificant. So I actually don't use negative keywords for my accounts. I do teach it in one video, and that's because one of the students got really, really good at results using this method, but I don't use it. And it's because it's really, and here's another reason. Here's the other reason why. Because I've worked with accounts that are starting off, and then I've worked with massive accounts. I've worked with accounts where the product is doing, like I said, $1 million a month. And guess what happens? When a product is doing $1 million a month, the keywords that they convert for make absolutely no sense to me. So if I were to negative those keywords in the early days, then I might have lost out on the sales. I mean, they make no sense. It'll be like a feature. Like people talk about how you should negative if you don't have this feature, but this specific product will do really well. And I think it's because as your product gains volume, you just start to convert for really weird keywords and keywords that maybe most people would have negative in the beginning. So that's my take on negative keyword research. Fanorkai. Regina says, good answer. Thank you, Regina. Carly says, I appreciate that you're really live. Lots of other gurus don't do live webinars, but make you think it's live, but you can tell it's not. Thanks, Carly. I appreciate it so much. Christina Zafarov says, hold on. Can you explain the term waterfalling and how it can be built successfully? So waterfalling is the concept of making sure the bid, like, okay, here's a good example. When we do product launches and we launch 3 auto campaigns, we'll waterfall the bids. So the first auto campaign is called Auto 1, and we'll make that equivalent to the high suggested bid. So we'll say in this situation, it's like, $2. So we'll make that, so that's our high auto. It's equivalent. Auto 2 would be equivalent to our mid suggested bid. So let's say that's like $1.10. And then auto 3 is going to be, the low suggested bid, which is like 20 cents, right? Here's the reason we do that. So we give the majority of the budget to Auto 1 because it's a data gatherer. Its job is to go out into the wild and gather data and get sales for us and stuff, and get traffic and all that stuff. But, you give money to Auto 2 and Auto 3 because when Auto 1 runs out, which it will, if it's equivalent to the high suggested bid, guaranteed it'll run out pretty early in the day for the most part. Then what you can do is use those lower bids like Auto 2 to pick up cheaper traffic. So like, if you're willing to bid only $1.10 versus $2, you're going to get cheaper clicks. And so that's why we do that, just to kind of give us a little extra visibility in the ad auction. We're not going to be as competitive, but we want to see if we can get some cheaper clicks, which could result in some cheaper sales. That's how we use the auto campaigns. Mihaita says, thank you, Sean. Thank you, man. I know you're an animal with the PPC. So the fact that you're here and, man, I hope I can add something to you because I know you're really good. Christina Zephyros says, love from Australia. I love it. Love from Chicago, Christina. Jack, he says, haha, that was written earlier in the webinar when you weren't talking for 15 minutes. You are not a joke. Oh, thanks, Jack. I appreciate it, man. Cool. Appreciate the love. Isaac says, this was very valuable and you did great. We hope we can work with you in the future. Thanks again. Isaac, please book a call if you can. Would love to see if I can get you some results, man. I really want to get some people some results. So thank you, Isaac, for the feedback. Oscar Meza says, hey, Sean, I've missed the whole thing and I was really interested. Is there a replay anywhere? We're going to do a replay just because I got a lot of people saying it's like 4 a.m. where they are. And I'll do a PDF version of this. That way people can have the slides as well. Carl says, if you don't have the buybacks, your ads won't run. Yep. Spot on. That's why we can't work with it. Mihaita says, and dude, I hope I'm getting this name right. What is your approach regarding relevant search terms that are not reaching the thresholds? Ooh, that's a good question. What are your approach regarding relevant search terms that are not reaching the thresholds, but converting with high ACOS? Okay, example. Mihai. 1 order, 100% ACOS. Honestly, generally what we do, we just let here's kind of what we do with those search terms. Our software, it has a formula where it's a pretty simple formula, like target ACOS minus current ACOS multiplied by max bid to give us the new bid. But if it's 100% ACOS, right? And, your target ACOS is like 30%, it could really decrease the bid extremely low. So we have a floor. So we have a floor that decreases it to no lower than 75% below CPC. That's what we do there. I mean, if it's really relevant, and there's a couple approaches. It depends on how you see it. So generally that's what we do. But if it's really relevant and like the client is insistent on, or the business we're working with is insistent on running that, then what we do is we'll just maybe pump up the the bid, if the bid, I'll cross analyze the bid to the suggested bid data, like, where we at on the auction? Are we at the 25th percentile, 50th? And then we'll bump it up if we need to see if we can get more data. And if we can't, then it could be a low volume search term. So, part of it depends on, like, if it's really relevant, then it's like, man, it could be a volume thing, could be an indexation thing. Yeah, this is, okay, yeah. If it's a really relevant search term, now if we're talking super relevant where it exactly describes the product, then, and it's got small volume, then we have to diagnose whether or not it's because of our indexation. So I would check whether or not we're indexed for that specific phrase, right? Using like seller tools or something like that. And if we are, well, making sure, I know that Seller Tools has this thing where it's like either green, orange, or red, making sure we're green on the indexation, right? Making sure that we are indexed for that. Because that's a huge indicator. Because if you are indexed for it, then it's like might be a volume thing. It might be a search volume problem. If it doesn't have a suggested bid, like if you look at it, there's no suggested bid, then that could be the case. Because my theory is that if a keyword doesn't have a suggested bid, it's low volume. But if it does, then it's like tricky and you're bidding high. Then that's where it's kind of like that's when it gets like, I don't know the answer to that one, but that's kind of how we treat it when we look at it, especially if it describes the product exactly, because we want to make sure we get that done there. Does that answer your question, man? Those are tricky. Because I've been in those situations a lot, and really it's like, hey, are we indexed? And what's the search volume for this thing? And what's our bid? Let me know if that helps, man. Amber, Narelle, possible access to your software and how. So the only way to do the software is to be in the program. So I'd book a call, Amber, and see if, we can help you. But I don't have it public just because makes it simpler on our end. Mike Brinson. Hey, Mike, what's going on, Mike Brinson? It's good to hear from you, man. Do you make that software, the one you use, available to paid members of your group? Yeah, exactly. So like the people who work with us, like join the program, they have access. So they get access to the software for sure. Yeah, everyone does in that program, just because it's part of the program. And that's a huge value add for people because, it really helps them with scaling certain processes, like the bid management systems. So let me know if that answers your question, Mike. All right, Leanne C says, if you have a new client, do you manage their PPC campaigns on your agency AMS account? No. So I know some people, what they do is some consultants / agencies owners, what they'll do is they'll go on ahead and they will take their AMS account and they'll basically run like a client's products on their AMS account. I've seen that happen before, but what we did was we got user permissions. Like we would get access to the platforms to do it. Let me know if that answers your question, Leanne. George, Impo. Where will you send the replay to our email? Yeah, I'll send it as a blast. So you guys should be on my email list since you opted in, and I'll send it as like to everyone either today or tomorrow. George Borowski, when you do top of search page 1, 800% is that on a 0.01 bid? It wasn't. No, it wasn't on a 0.01 bid. It was an 80% reduction of the original bid. So the only reason I did that was because I watched the video by Casey Gauze on the viral launch thing, and that's what he did. He decreased, I don't think he necessarily said decrease by 80%, but I did the math on the video, and it was a decrease by 80%. So I decreased the bid by 80% and then increased the placement percentage by 800%. That's how I did it. Jade Tremblay says, what are in detail your strategies to find new keywords to add to your campaigns? So I don't know if I want to go too into detail just because we've got a lot of questions and I don't know if I want to make sure everybody gets answered. But generally, like I like to use The search term report, basically like we bucket keywords by three or more orders and 1 to 2 orders. That's how we do it. And then we deduplicate them using the deduplication formula we had here. And then we calculate the starting bids. We use the average cost per click at the match type level. So like whatever, and then we'll use a multiple on that. So like, for example, hold on, I think I have it here. For example, we have here like a PDF of like, we'll take exact times 0.9, exact times 0.12. So we'll calculate what the cost per click is at the match type level. And then we'll use that and then we'll use a multiple. Like for example, if it has greater than or equal to 3 orders, then we'll take the CPC of the exact match type and multiply by 1.2. And then we'll take that number and phrase will be 90% of that. And then broad will be 75% of phrase. That's kind of how we do that there. And then we pull suggested keywords as well. We deduplicate those, make sure we're deduplicating using deduplication formulas. And then we bid on those as well in all 3 match type. Those tend to perform really, really well for the PPC side. Amber Norell, do you know any difference in performance in HSA in Seller Central versus AMS? Okay, this is a really good question. I used to like think I knew. I used to think I knew, man, but I don't know if I know anymore. So basically, we used to think like, hey, AMS performed way better than sponsored brand. Like sponsored brands in AMS performs way better than sponsored brands in Seller Central. But what we found was a while ago we did a study. The reason we said that because we did a study, we compared results, right? And then we would duplicate campaigns into Seller Central and they wouldn't do as well. But a guy in our training program, what he did was he only had his sponsored brands in Seller Central. And he asked me, like, should I duplicate them over to AMS? Will they perform better? I said, yeah, go for it. I was like, they most likely will because that's what we've seen. They performed horribly. And so I think that it's a history thing, potentially. I think that whichever campaign has the most history is the one that's most likely going to perform the best. Because what he did was he took campaigns that had great history, copied them into AMS, and it performed horribly. So I suspect it's a history thing. So do I notice any difference? I do, but I think it's history. I don't think it's anything other than that, potentially. Lynn, fun, how to research keywords. I just went over that a little. I went over that, answered Jade Tremblay's question on that one, Lynn. Jenner Ryan says, for people that are pretty new, such as myself, and just using Campaign Manager, this is pretty confusing, LOL. Sorry, man. I'm sorry. I have to maybe break it out. Well, George, where will you post or send the replays to our emails? Yep, I will. I'll send them. I'll also post it on Facebook, but like people would have to get it from the email. Coaching include. So what does the coaching include? Coaching includes, it's our program, our training program, our software, and group coaching. That's kind of what so group coaching, the training program, the video program, and then the software as well, Andreas Masuris. Jack Bijou says, if the data tells you it should be a negative keyword, but the actual keyword is very relevant to your product, what do you do? Jack, I kind of went, earlier in this call, I went into pretty good detail around my negative keyword thing. I actually don't use them. So just because of that very situation and multiple situations on top of that. Leanne says, when you are out of stock and inventory is back, what type of ad do you run first to get your ranking back? I recommend, I don't recommend launching new campaigns. I just recommend increasing the bids on your old campaigns. Because you're right, like when you go out of stock and then you come back in stock, you're kind of launching, right? Like you're kind of like relaunching your product. And so you want to make sure that when you're out of stock and you get your inventory back, that you can do what you need to do to gain the ranking back. So, but I don't like launching new campaigns because they don't have that history. And so I recommend increasing bids on existing campaigns so that you can get your traction back. But keep in mind, from my experience, when you're out of stock and you come back in stock, it really depends on the length generally, but ACoS is pretty high. Hold on, Mark. All right, Jack Bijou, Mark. Good with it not being. Oh, cool. Thanks, Mark. Mark Wheelot says, good with it not being 100% polished in real world direct, but everyone should get better too. I think Mark's just saying like my presentation was like, it's not perfect, 100% polished. It's raw. Some people might call it raw. Jean Montalvo. When you say get a mentor, what do you really mean? Because I need help, but I ask a lot of questions. You'll have to be 100% with me. So Jean, I mean, it depends on where you're at in your business. Like, okay, let me go over like the quick evolution of getting a mentor. So early on when I was, before I was an entrepreneur, I was looking for jobs and stuff. I had a lot of different mentors. Like my career counselor was my mentor. My mom, my mentor. Like I had a lot of like people that were close to me that were my mentors, right? They, in networking, you get mentors. And this is when I was like in the job world, right? That's how it was. You network with people and stuff like that. And even in entrepreneurship, when I started, trying to launch businesses and scale businesses, since I didn't have the money at the time, I just, I had to figure out how to get the resources that I like, how to find mentors that could help me with stuff, right? Now, honestly, if I could go back, I'd probably make more investments financially than I did, just because I've realized that like when you make the correct investment, I mean, the multiple is nuts. It depends, Jean, it really depends on your resources. Like, I mean, what type of resources do you have in terms of like, cash flow? Like if you don't have a lot of resources, it might not be the best to invest in a mentor right now, just because you want to focus on doing that. But if, your business is doing pretty well, then I do recommend getting a mentor. And dude, trust me, I have people that I work with in my program that ask me a ton of questions. I mean, dude, I have coaching calls twice a week for 2 hours each time. That's 4 hours a week, man. And so dude, we'll go to 2.5 hours of asking questions. So trust me, man, I have people asking me questions all the time because questions are like little mini problems. So that's not a bad thing. But, getting a mentor, you got to know how to ask the right questions. And that's a big thing. And then making sure you actually do it's a big thing too. So I have a mentor. And, sometimes for me, like with my mentor, like I'm in his mastermind and I fly out and I go to the business event a few times a year. And sometimes like recently I haven't really, asked a lot of questions, but I observe, right? I observe what he does and I have access to things that like I have access to a lot of programs he has. And, when you're looking for a mentor, you're looking for somebody who's better than you at the thing you want to be good at. Like this presentation. If your business is doing well and you think I'm better than you at Amazon advertising and you think I could like do better, then you would be like, okay, that's a potential mentor because they should be ahead of you. And so that's kind of what I mean when I say mentor at that one, man. Let me know if that answers your question, Jean. Thanks for the explanation. My pleasure, Mark Jennings. Oh, yeah. Cool. Guru Charan just booked a call with AJ Shankar for Saturday of this week. Looking forward to it. AJ is one of my team members. He helps me with, doing these calls, man. I get so many people doing calls. So, and also another thing is, me, like I want to be the best at PPC. And for me to be the best at PPC, I want to make sure that I can continue to build a product. But Guru, thank you so much. I'll tell AJ. I'll tell him as soon as we get off. Hold on, let me write that down. Tell AJ about Guru. Cool, I'll do that. I'll let him know. Might even take a little screenshot. Yep, gonna take a screenshot. Done. All right, cool. Ho fam says, thanks, Sean. Don't feel nervous. You're the expert. Good information. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, man. I always get nervous, man, for some reason. Thank you so much for an excellent seminar. It is really helpful. Thank you, Carol. Thank you so much for the positive feedback. Really, really helps me out a lot. Keeps me motivated. Christina says, gentle feedback. Maybe only use the first name when reading people's comments. Okay, cool. I can do that. Christina. Krista, do you target one keyword per campaign? That's a good question. I've had people say that they just want to target keyword. Honestly, the quantity of keywords that we target in our campaigns is directly correlated to the methodology that we use. So if we're like finding search terms in our search term report that have 3 or more orders, then what we do is we name that process. And then if it has 1 keyword, that's great. If it has 10 keywords, that's great as well. So it's based on the methodology we use. So the quantity of keywords is directly correlated to the method that we use to find the data. Jack. Hey, Jack, could you write your question again? Please answer my question. Didn't mean to call you. Yeah, let me know which question you had, Jack. Carson Crane. Have you groomed more branded or private label sellers? Sorry, I'm not going to do the last name thing. Carson asks, have you groomed more branded or private label sellers? How do you define branded versus private label? Just because, I mean, private label is similar to branding because, you know, it's their brand, right? So could you clarify, Carson? Mark asks, I have nearly 200 products that are all relevant for several identical search terms. How would you recommend testing to identify which products perform best on the search terms? First thing I would do, Mark, is I would go over to the business report, detail page by ASIN, right? Find the breakdown by SKU, look at the last 30 days, find out of those 200, identical products, you need to find the top ones that do well, because you're not going to want to run it on every one. You want to run it on the top organic performant listings. And then what you're going to do is test all the keywords, man. Like what I would do is if it's the same exact product, just take all the keyword lists and test them against each other using the same exact bid and the same exact match types. And then what's going to happen is, they're going to perform differently. And so what's going to happen is you're going to be basically going to be split testing them, right? Because given all variables are equal, it's a one variable difference, and the only variable is the SKU. And so if the SKU is the only variable, then that's going to be the indicator of what performs best and what doesn't. Now, 200 products is a lot, so you might, even if you have like 100 of them that perform well, you might want to start off with a smaller test just to make sure that you're getting good results, and then roll it out. I always recommend testing in smaller batches and roll it out gradually. But that's how I would do it. So that's kind of that's how we approach it when like a client, I have clients that have multiple products, multiple of the same products. And we literally do find and replace. We use the bulk file. So if they launch a new product that's the exact same as another one, we use the bulk file. We use the find and replace function in Excel, and then we just upload those campaigns and literally and we increase it by about 20%, and then we see how they perform against each other. Let me know if that answered your question, Mark. Arnie totally answered my question. Thank you. Thank you, Arnie. Appreciate it. All right, let's see. Avery asks, how do you set SKU level ad budgets? I would say Avery, SKU level ad budgets, it's kind of arbitrary in the beginning, right? Like just how much you're willing to spend, right? Like if you're willing to spend $30 on manual campaigns, just do 10 across the exact phrase and broad match type, but then adjust as needed. So it depends on how much you're willing to spend. Like I went over my PPC launch strategy. And that's really based on, so budget level is based on how much we're willing to spend for that specific SKU. So the campaign budget should be correlated to how much you're willing to spend. We do around $10, maybe $20, but And then we upload them and they go live. And then once they start to get data, if they're hitting our ACoS target or they're better than our ACoS target, then we'll increase it by like 50%. But if they're not doing, that well, then we just keep it the same and let it go through the optimization cycle. So that's kind of how we start with the ad budgets. Based on how much you're willing to spend. Like you have to have that number. Like how much am I willing to spend per day on this product? A lot of people don't do that. They just put like $10 on the budget. But you want to add up all those 10, because if you have 100 campaigns at $10, this is a lot of money. So you want to add up, how much you're willing to spend. Let me know if that answers your question, Avery. Carl, I think you get AMS when you register for brand registry. So you don't, to my knowledge, you don't get AMS. You get sponsored brands in Seller Central. That's my knowledge. Krista. You do more than one auto campaign on one product. When we launch, we do 3 auto campaigns and we waterfall the bids. Krista, let me know if that answers your question. Mark asked the 1,000 plus SKU conundrum. That's worth the webinar. Thanks, man. My pleasure, Mark. Dude, that's all it's about, man. Like in life, it's not about like the whole thing being good, right? You sit here and you're like, hey, I'm looking for the gold. And so like when I do stuff, if I sit through like a 3-hour webinar, I'm not expecting every single piece of information to be awesome. I'm going there because I look at the title and I'm like, all right, I think this applies to me. And I'm looking for one thing that can like really put me over the top. Because that's how it is, like iterations, small iterations, Mark. Cool. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Raul, in my campaign manager, I'm able to target top of search and product pages using increments and bid adjustments, but not for rest of search. Can it be done for rest of search using bulk files? Hold on. Hey, I'm going to take a screenshot of this and try to, I actually don't know. I'm not sure why that's happening. I'm going to take a screenshot of it. And Raul, and I'll hold on, Raul Marin. I'll send this to you, man. I'll double check in one of my accounts. All right. I just want to make sure I'm accurate. Maria says, thank you very much for the reply, Sean. I will do this shell system ASAP. Legendary. I got stuck for 2 days in the training videos just thinking how to nest the variations within a specific campaign. Sweet, Maria. Let me know if you need any help with that. Juliana, on PPC, do you cut bleeders after 8 clicks and no sales? What if I pull a report from 14 days and I got 1 order on the 5th click, but then on 14 days, hold on. Do you cut bleeders after 8 clicks and no sales? Yes. What if I pull a report from 14 days and I got 1 order? So 14 days, 1 order. Okay. On the 5th, what if the 14 days and I got orders on the 5th click? Well, you can't track that, right? You won't be able to track if you got it on the 5th click or not, right? Unless you have 5 clicks. Yeah, so I guess you could. So 5th click. So I'm going to assume you have 5 clicks then, because that would be the only way to track that. So 1 order, 5 clicks. But then on the next 14 days, 0 sales. After that, and we are up to 15 clicks. Do you start counting the 8 clicks? Yes, we do start counting the 8 clicks after the first sale. Yes. So if it gets, if in time frame number 1, we have 14 days, 1 sale, 5 clicks. And then in time frame number 2, we have 15 clicks and no sales. Then in that second 14-day time frame, we would. Here's why. Because, in that first 14-day time frame, that's a 20% conversion rate, right? 1 divided by 5, 5th click, 20% conversion rate. But if we add up, those 28 days, and we take, 1 divided by 20, that's a 5% conversion rate. That is pretty low, I would say. I mean, unless your product is like $80, unless you have a high price product, which is lower conversion rates, I think that's a pretty low conversion rate. And so, when you add those data points up, 20 clicks, one sale, 1 divided by 20 is 5%. And so that's why we would cut it back. We would cut it after that one, because if you look at the aggregate data, it's super low conversion rate. And if you keep that, if you keep that conversion rate and you extrapolate it out to longer time frames, it can increase ACLS and stuff like that. So yeah, we would cut it out. Let me know if that answers your question, Juliana. Okay. Really good stuff, Sean. Thanks, Prem. Oh, that's a good question. Wednesday asks, do you think using other software like Helium 10 will have our data leaked? That is a really good question. I've actually worked with clients that don't use softwares at all because they just don't want other people to have their data. So, yeah. I mean, if you give them, do you think it depends on the software type. If they plug into the API, yeah, they're going to get data directly from your account. So, I don't worry about it too much, honestly, but, some people they don't want other people having their data regardless. So, that's a decision that I think the business owner has to make on that one. But yeah, Mihaita, he says, yes, thank you. Great ideas. It's always tricky. I know, man. It's always tricky, man. I love it. Thanks for the answer, Sean. Jade, my pleasure. Amber asks, what about the ability to make a custom Lincoln HSA? Any chance you're using that to target certain search phrases? I am testing one way to do that, because you can do certain custom links. I am testing, running a test to target a keyword to see if we can get ranked. So, but I don't have all the data yet. So that's something I can't speak on heavily from a data perspective, Amber. Custom links and AMS. Jean says, yes, thank you. My pleasure. Proprietary products. Okay. So, honestly, Carson, we mainly work with private label products. So I would say, pretty much everyone in the training program is private label. Mark says, thanks, dude. Spot on. Thanks. My pleasure, Mark. Wednesday, are you selling on Amazon? I do not sell on Amazon at all. So that's a good question. All right, guys. Do you guys have any other questions? If so, pop them in the question box and I will answer them. If not, we can go on ahead and wrap this puppy up. We are sitting at 2 hours and 40 minutes. Thank you guys so much. 72 people are still here. So this is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I'll give it another 30 seconds and then we'll wrap it up. Thank you, Sean. Raul says that. Thank you, Raul. Thank you so much, man, for your time and your energy. Thank you guys again. I know you're busy, so, thank you so much. All right. Leanne says, thank you for your valuable time and sharing. Thank you as well, Leanne. Christina, thank you. Thank you. Mark, great webinar. Thank you so much. Well done. Thank you. All right, guys. Appreciate the Q&As. My pleasure, Mark. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I will go on ahead and send out the replay either today or tomorrow. And if you guys want to work together, go on ahead and go to ppcamsaccelerator.com/LW schedule and book a call. And so we can diagnose and figure out if we can scale you up even further than where you are. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good week. And if you need anything from me, let me know.